She walked into the police station alive. She said someone had been inside her home. She was told there was no crime. 1 week later, her apartment was empty. Her name was Anna Whitmore, 23 years old, no criminal record, no history of mental illness, no known enemies. She worked part-time at a bookstore and lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. On April 14th, 1986, at 9:40 p.m., she walked into the police station and asked to speak to someone. Not urgently, not hysterically, just carefully. She said she believed someone had been entering her apartment while she was away. She didn't say who. She said she didn't want to know. She just wanted it to stop. Anna explained that for several weeks, she had been finding flowers outside her front door. Always fresh, always placed neatly to the side. Daisies. Once, lilies. At first, she thought it was a mistake. Wrong apartment, wrong door. Then the notes appeared. Short sentences, written in careful handwriting. Not aggressive, not romantic, just observant. You came home late tonight. You forgot to lock the door again. Blue suits you better than green. Anna said she hadn't been wearing blue outside lately. At home, yes. Which meant whoever wrote the notes was closer than it seemed. Closer, as if from the inside. The last note had no words, only a time. 2:17 a.m. Anna said she woke up at exactly that moment the night before. No noise, no dream, just the feeling of being watched. She was asked the standard questions. Signs of forced entry, broken locks, missing items. Anna shook her head. Nothing was missing. Nothing had been significantly moved or altered. Only small things. A chair slightly turned. A window not fully latched. A radio station she didn't listen to. Things that couldn't be proven. Things that sounded subjective. The officer on duty wrote in the report, "No signs of unlawful entry. Possible anxiety-related interpretation of events." The report was filed. No patrol, no follow-up. Anna thanked the officer and apologized for taking his time. A few days later, police tried to call her. Her phone didn't answer. Her apartment was locked, and Anna Whitmore never returned. Anna Whitmore was officially listed as a missing person 7 days after her last contact with police. There were no signs of struggle, no blood, no forced entry. Her personal belongings were still inside the apartment. Clothes, books, cash in her wallet. Her keys were gone. So was her coat, which suggested one thing. She left on her own, or believed she was safe enough to do so. Neighbors were questioned. Most of them hadn't noticed anything unusual. One woman mentioned seeing flowers in the hallway weeks earlier. Another recalled Anna speaking briefly with a man near the laundromat. Mid-30s, average height, unremarkable. No one remembered his face clearly. The flowers were documented. The notes were photographed. Both were treated as signs of harassment, not abduction. Investigators began looking for a stalker. A local man with prior complaints was brought in for questioning. then arrested. The case appeared to move forward, fast. The arrest looked decisive. It wasn't. The man taken in was Daniel Croft, 36 years old. Maintenance work. Moved frequently. He had been reported before for suspicious behavior. Once questioned for following a woman on the street, no charges. He denied knowing Anna Whitmore, denied the notes, denied the flowers, denied entering her apartment. There was no physical evidence tying him to her. No fingerprints, no handwriting match, no witnesses. But the pressure to show progress was real. So Croft stayed in the file longer than he should have, until the details stopped lining up. What broke the version wasn't evidence. It was tone. The notes weren't threatening. They were attentive, written by someone who enjoyed proximity. Croft spoke like a man who stayed outside. That wasn't the only thing that didn't fit. While reviewing Anna Whitmore's file, a clerk from records flagged something familiar. Not her name, her report. Flowers at the door. Notes describing habits. No forced entry. She had seen it before. In older files. From other states. The first file came from Nevada, 3 years earlier. A woman living alone. Same initial concern. Same dismissal. She disappeared 11 days later. Then another, Arizona. Different city. Same sequence. Early report. Reassurance. Silence. Then nothing. The files weren't linked. Different jurisdictions. Different investigators. Different suspects. But the structure was identical. That's when another name surfaced. Thomas Hale. 41 years old. He had moved into Anna Whitmore's building less than 3 months before she disappeared. From Colorado. Hale worked in commercial HVAC maintenance, short-term contracts, temporary housing, regular relocations. He didn't stay long anywhere. Hale was brought in for questioning, not as a suspect, as a formality. He was calm, polite. He answered slowly, too slowly. He said he barely knew Anna, that he kept to himself, that he worked long hours. When asked about flowers, he smiled, said he hated them, said he was allergic. The allergy checked out. The smile didn't. He knew the exact day Anna stopped coming home. Said it was because the hallway had gone quiet. Too quiet. That detail was never public. At the time, Thomas Hale was released. There was no warrant, no physical evidence, no witness who could place him inside the apartment. His name remained in the file, circled. Years later, during a separate investigation in Connecticut, that name surfaced again, not as a suspect, as a reference name in the file. At the time, after Thomas Hale was released, the investigation lost momentum. Not because leads disappeared, but because there was nothing that could legally move the case forward. There was no single charge to pursue, no jurisdiction willing to take ownership, no evidence strong enough to move forward. So the case shifted, from investigation to maintenance. Anna Whitmore was officially listed as a voluntary disappearance. The decision was cautious and final. Nothing had been disproven. It had simply been filed away. That classification solved several problems. It removed urgency. It reduced resources. It closed doors quietly. Thomas Hale moved again. Another contract. Another city. No charges followed him. No restrictions applied. For the system, that was closure. For Anna's family, it wasn't. They kept asking the same question. Why would she leave without telling anyone? There was no answer that fit. Not her habits, not her plans, not the fear she had reported. The file remained open in only one place, the archive, with a handwritten note added years later. It didn't say solved. It said insufficient evidence. Years after Anna Whitmore's case was classified as inactive, the file was pulled again. Not reopened, re-examined. This time, because investigators were comparing archives. They weren't looking for a confession. They weren't reopening disappearances. They were checking something quieter. Names, dates, background notes that usually stayed buried. During that review, one file stood out. A report from Connecticut, filed years earlier, then forgotten. A woman who had not disappeared. She had gone to the police early, just like Anna. She reported flowers left at her door, short notes, a growing sense that something was wrong. There was no forced entry. Her complaint was documented, then dismissed. She didn't leave because she knew what would happen. She left after being told there was no crime. Not because the fear stopped, but because the reassurance didn't feel real. When investigators later revisited her file, she was interviewed again. She couldn't identify Thomas Hale with certainty. She didn't describe an attack. She described moments that only made sense in hindsight. Patience, waiting, ordinary interactions that hadn't felt dangerous at the time. Her description matched Anna's report. The notes, the flowers, the timing. But none of it met a courtroom standard. Suspicion survived. The case didn't. The district attorney declined to proceed. There were no charges related to Anna Whitmore's disappearance. No trial, no verdict. Years later, Thomas Hale was convicted in a different case. Not for abduction, not for murder. For unlawful restraint and trespassing. What tied him to Anna's file was never evidence. It was proximity. His name appearing more than once in places it didn't quite belong. What remained was a conclusion without a verdict, and a name that never fully left the archive. By the time the file returned to the archive, nothing new was expected. No confession, no remains, no final location. Anna Whitmore remained listed as missing. What changed wasn't the evidence. It was the order. When her report was placed beside others, the sequence became clear. Not a pattern of violence, a pattern of response. Every woman came early. Every woman was told nothing criminal had occurred. Every disappearance began after that reassurance. Thomas Hale was never convicted for Anna Whitmore, but he was never cleared. Years later, his conviction in a different case confirmed something investigators had missed. The behavior escalated, not suddenly, gradually. And escalation doesn't require brilliance. It requires time. Anna didn't disappear without warning. She disappeared after doing what the system allowed her to do. Wait. That pause between fear and proof was the most dangerous moment in the case. Not the flowers, not the notes, the delay. People ask what stayed with me after this case. It wasn't a suspect. It wasn't a theory. It was the sound of a door closing while someone was still asking for help. Some people vanished. Their stories didn't.